New edition of the Heat Treat podcast. Today we have a power player of the industry and a good friend of mine, Mark Hemsath, Vice President of Sales for Nitriding Heat Treating Services. First of all, how you doing, Mark?
Carlos, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on this podcast. Always glad to see you doing these podcasts, and I certainly appreciate that you put all this effort into it for the heat treat industry. Wonderful job.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for coming here. And today we're going to be talking about nitriding. Mark's an expert on the subject, has been on the industry for quite a while, knows heat treat, has been into many heat treat shops, many companies that do internal heat treating. And, he's seen many applications, work on many interesting projects. And we have had some other podcasts regarding nitriding, the process, the dissociation. But today we're going to talk a little bit about more why is this process becoming a trending topic, if I would like to say that, what is important for the future. We know there's always that comparison about carburizing and nitriding. But we're not gonna go very deep into that. But why is nitriding getting a lot of popularity nowadays? What they are saying that it's going to be the process of the future, right? Many applications. But first of all, Mark, can you just give us a little background of who you are, the company you represent, for a little of your experience?
Yeah, sure. As you mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Sales for Nitrex Heat Treating Services. We run a number of different service centers for doing the actual heat treatment. You might be familiar with running heat treat service centers yourself, Carlos. And we have locations not only in the US, we have one in Canada, one in Mexico, we're in Italy, Poland, and China as well. So we're pretty much a global player. And obviously we focus mainly, but not totally, on nitriding and ferritic nitrocarburizing.
So nitriding and FNC, ferritic nitrocarburizing, are going to be like the main things. So we know Nitrex is a very big global company, many sites, and just let us, if you could just give us a brief explanation or an introduction. Why is this process becoming so popular? And why are manufacturers, we're talking about the aerospace industry, we're talking about cars, looking to nitriding to design the future generation of cars, and which components as well. I know that there are different applications. You need normalizing, quenching temper, case hardening, nitriding, even LPC. But what's unique about nitriding and why OEMs are looking into it?
Well, in a simple word, it's done in the ferritic temperature range, which is the lower temperature range, which means you're not going to get much distortion. We just had a nice little webinar, which was very well attended, about gear heat treatment, where we talked about nitriding and carburizing. And in there, we discussed the fact that you can do finish machining on a part, and then you can harden it and get quite a bit of improved properties with nitriding, and you don't have to touch it again as far as getting your dimensions where you want it. So that's really the main reason in my mind. Now, also nitriding or ferritic nitrocarburizing has, three benefits. We call it the tribology for the treatment. So you've got wear resistance, which everybody's looking for, the hardness, the wear resistance. You've also got some corrosion resistance. A lot of people do FNC to increase the corrosion resistance. And you've also got lubricity. So, you get some different features there on the part. So nitriding has a lot of benefits without a lot of the negatives that you might get, say, for carburizing.
Well, another peculiarity of it is that you talk about wear resistance, corrosion resistance, and lubrication. This process does not have a quenching process on it. So
yes, the quench that results, in the distortion. Okay.
Distortion and as well core and surface hardness.
Yeah, you're trying to, you're austenitizing the steel at a high temperature, so those molecules are undergoing change. And then you're rapidly quenching them, and that also causes stress within the material. So that results in distortion, and you get non-uniform quenching because it's virtually impossible to quench uniformly. Everybody's trying to come up with better quenching methods, And then the ultimate version of quenching to try to get the dimensions is something like press quenching, right? Where you put it into a fixture so that it doesn't move, and you keep your dimensions.
So now let's talk about the market right now, which is very funny. Nobody knows what's going to happen, right? With all these supply chain issues and the blockage that we're be having and all the delays. When we talked about heat treating, it's very wide, many different processes, as I just stated, nitriding FNC being two of many, right? But as a heat treater, you would like to be as flexible as possible, because when there's not enough FNC or nitriding capability, you should have other capabilities like carbon nitriding or FNC in the case of IQs. I know you guys do all of your processing on pit furnaces designed by I don't know if it is the parent company of Nitrix, but they're Nitrix brand. But just would like to say, what's the difference of doing FNC on an IQ furnace against doing it on a pit?
Well, that's an interesting topic, Carlos. And
that's better than those are the questions, not like the ones that we had on the script, which were very general. So.
But let me explain a little bit. We actually have 3 different equipment types at Nitrex, and as you may know, Nitrex as an equipment company was founded in 1984. So Nitrex has grown to a very large company in the heat treat business because of the demand of nitriding equipment. Yes, our main equipment has always been the pit style furnace. The nice thing with the pit style furnace is you can put quite a bit of weight in there, and you have overhead material handling, which is typically with a crane. So it's very convenient, right? We also have front loading, what we call horizontal, which kind of look like a vacuum temper furnace. Those are also retort based, and those are somewhat popular, but because the retort is horizontal, you're supporting the load differently. So you're challenged in how much weight you can put in the furnace. I mean, you're familiar with this with integral quench furnaces. You can only put so much weight in there or you can't transfer it. A pit furnace, because it's, the retort's basically on suspension, it can take quite a bit of weight. So, we could probably put a 10,000 pound load in a fairly medium-sized pit furnace, but we can only probably put 3,000 pounds in a fairly medium-sized horizontal furnace. So for that reason, it's just more cost-effective to have a pit furnace in most situations. We also have some continuous type furnaces where, that we run the parts in and out just like you do with an IQ furnace. And I know you and I had a little conversation on the side. People do use integral quench furnaces. Obviously, then the quench isn't really being used. You need a top cool to cool the parts slowly. But you can, if you have a carbonitriding furnace, you already have ammonia and you have endogas, you can do typically FNC in an IQ furnace. But remember, it's at low temperature. So typically FNC is around 1100 degrees Fahrenheit. That range, it's in the non-austenitic range of the steel. And because you're using endogas and you're using ammonia, you're getting into also NFPA issues with the furnace. Right. Anything under 1400 degrees Fahrenheit, you're getting into safety issues. So you have to operate
with the endogas, right?
Well, it's an explosive atmosphere, correct?
It is.
So if you have a leak or something like that, something bad could happen. You don't have that problem when you're carburizing or through hardening because you're at a higher temperature, and any oxygen that comes in just burns off with the endogas, with the hydrogen and the CO. So.
And now, having said that, when we do FNC or nitriding, we use a lot of ammonia. Big plants don't like to have ammonia in-house, because it's very, it's very smelly. I don't know if we're talking to the heat treat community,
it's noxious and it can kill you in a very small amount.
It is, but you can smell it and you can feel it.
Yeah.
your sinus will go off.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't take much.
But what would be some of the peculiarities or that you have to take in consideration with dealing with ammonia? Because we're on the furnace business, when all the furnace need to have to be maintained. Otherwise, you're going to have a leak.
Well, and that's the difference between our equipment and running it in IQ furnace. An IQ furnace is not designed to be that tight. Okay, so you're going to smell ammonia in that plant if you have heavy amounts of ammonia going in there, especially at low temperatures, because it's not all going to dissociate. In carbonitriding, the stuff breaks down very fast at that temperature. You're not going to smell much of it. In the nitriding ranges, it takes much longer to break down or dissociate. So our furnaces are retorts, which are sealed. You have seals in the furnace lid. You have seals around the fans. So, you walk through one of our plants, it's rare that you smell any ammonia, okay, because that's the equipment is designed that way. And of course, that makes a nicer atmosphere for people to work in. But that's part of the design of the equipment, is to get away from that ammonia smell. Once we got away from the ammonia smell many years ago, people are more willing to do nitriding because it's not so uncomfortable to work with. So yes, that's part of the reason it's also grown.
And Mark, help me understand your company's strategy. And I just don't want to put you on the spot, but I know that also Nitrix actively it's selling equipment, and you are selling commercial heat treatment. How does that works, and where do you find the balance? And how's those strategy board meetings with management that
we use Nitrex equipment, obviously. We use
right
furnaces. And yes, I mean, for those that don't know, Nitrex has three different divisions. I'm in the heat treating services, which is about 1/3 of our annual revenue. And, heat treating is a very interesting business in and of itself, commercial heat treating. And it's that's one of the questions, I think, when we talked about what are we going to talk about is commercial heat treating growing? Yes, it's a growth business, as is the furnace business. That's another part of our business. I was shocked when I came to Nitrex how many nitriding furnaces we sell. We are definitely the king of the industry, and for good reason. We've been doing it a long time, and we most of the equipment features and control features were brought forth by Nitrex. So as you know, we also purchased a vacuum furnace company a couple of years ago, which we now call Nitrex Vacuum.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that one.
Yeah. So we're selling vacuum furnaces as well. So that's what we call Nitrex turnkey systems. Those are the where we can go into either a commercial heat treat shop or captive. We're big into captive facilities, whether that's an aluminum extrusion facility that wants to do their dies, or whether it's someone that in automotive that has a lot of parts that they need to nitro-carburize. We cover all the different industries, and there's a lot of tooling, a lot of tool steels that are nitrided to get that extra hardness. So tooling is a big issue as well. And so that's our equipment side, but we also own United Process Controls Marathon monitors. Okay, so that is our control side of the business, and we also are heavily into software. You might be familiar, running plants, etc. So the whole digital world, and we obviously do hydrogen sensors because it's used in our nitriding furnaces. We do oxygen probes. We do all of those things. In that, so we're a pretty large company worldwide. We even do endo generators. You mentioned endogas, etc. So a lot of things we do that probably you may not have realized. I certainly didn't realize we did all that when I first got here. But very, very large and impressive company, and very happy to be a part of it.
So now let's talk about one of the most top questions nowadays. To do it in-house or to outsource it? And now let's talk about big companies. What are the trends you're seeing right now? Because the big companies that outsource their work, when they were getting their parts from somewhere else and the supply chain, collapsed and all these price increases started, a lot of people knocked on the customer door and say, "Hey, this is going to be my price increase," and everybody's telling. Well, all my vendors are telling me, we're going to be 6 weeks late, 8 weeks late, and that's it, right? But when you have the process in-house, you can control a little bit better pricing increases because you know the real price and delivery. But the amount of resources, hiring people, buying the machine, understanding the process, and pick up it, right? It's massive. But, and I'm talking macro here. What are you seeing with these big companies? Are they saying, I'd rather stay with my supply chain, or should I own the technology, own the process, and control it myself? What are your comments in there? Do you have an opinion on that, on what's going on right now?
I don't think it's changing a lot, to be honest. I think there's a number of trends in the industry that are, challenging to everybody. Excuse me. Even as you know, getting labor is very tough.
It is.
So as a commercial heat treater, we're challenged by that. We're extremely busy, but our choke point or our limiting factor is labor. It's not equipment. Typically, if you're a captive heat treater, you have your own heat treat shop. Yes, you're going to have some labor issues. Your limitation is going to be, if you want to grow, adding new equipment. And in this day and age, it's probably a year to add additional furnace capacity. So someone like us, a commercial heat treat shop, like Nitrex Heat Treating Services, we have to be ready with available excess capacity. So I always say, we have to be prepared for when that customer comes and they have a need now to increase their manufacturing. If we're not there, they're looking at 1 year to get their production
right
up and running. So, we make it easier, and we're really not any more expensive, because if you bring your heat treating in-house, most of the people, as you know, I've sold equipment for a long time in my life. Most of the people that came to me for equipment, it's not because they wanted to reduce costs. It's they wanted more control over the process, and their commercial heat treater wasn't doing the job. So, my job is to make sure we as a commercial heat treater are living up to the expectations of our customers. If we're doing the job, the only thing that they can come at us on is cost, because we're doing quality, we're doing turnaround, we're doing everything that they need to run their product, and they're happy because they don't want to vertically integrate necessarily, and they're not in the business of heat treating. And heat treating, Carlos, as you know, is not an easy business. Okay,
it's not. It's not. But let me add into that. But heat treat is not an easy business. I totally get it. But it's a very geographically business because you have to be around a customer to a certain point, not to have a lot of inventory back and forth. That's where companies say, like, should I do this, or should I have a bunch of trucks driving back and forth?
Yeah,
what do you
is big.
Shipping is big, logistics is big, part control is big, traceability. And well, I'm in Mexico, and when you're, and I know plants that are sending their parts back and forth to be heat treated in the States or delivered in the States to a post process. So that is huge control of parts, a lot of inventory. What do you think is the sweet spot for a plant to move back and forward parts, not to fall into the I have to have a lot of inventory, trucking cost. Of course, it will be very nice to have all your customers, 20 miles away from you, right? But sometimes it's not the case. What do you think that's the sweet spot when trucking, transportation, and logistics and inventory on process is just not optimal, just to keep doing
I mean,
it?
we typically say around 150 miles around the plant.
150 miles, okay.
So that's, what is it, 300, kilometers, right? If I'm not mistaken, something like that. So, but it also depends on the process. And what I like to say is certain processes travel further. In other words, if you're doing pure gas nitriding, precision gas nitriding, it's difficult to do. And we do that. So like for aerospace, we can easily attract customers from the West Coast, California, because we do such a good job, and there aren't many of us.
From the West Coast to
Yes,
where?
to the Midwest.
To the Midwest. Okay,
Yeah.
so trucking
thousands of miles.
thousands of miles.
And you know, the volumes, the weights aren't that great, so you know they can air freight it or what have you. So it's not the heavy volume. Now you get into the automotive business, you're on the other end of the spectrum as far as weights are concerned and volumes, right? So you know, automotive is going to be more sensitive to that factor. Like I said, the process is another issue. Lower expensive process like a short FNC cycle is going to be kind of just like carburizing is going to be sensitive to the distance away from the plant. So that's the key. If you look at our plants in the US, for instance, we have one in the Chicago area, one in Michigan area, and one in Indianapolis, Indiana area. So they're about 4 hours drive from each other. So that really lets us cover the Midwest tremendously, right? So, you know, that's very beneficial. But of course, we see that issue of weight and distance for sure.
Now let's talk. We have talked about the automotive and aerospace industry. Now, electric car is going to get a big jump into night riding with the motors. Is that something you're seeing? Are you quoting a lot of that stuff?
Well, I did a little spiel on that in our gear webinar, and I actually did a little studying because I didn't know. I don't know if you were at the heat treat show in St. Digest.
I was,
but I guess my boss Jason, who you've had on this podcast, discussing digitalization, which I can't pronounce the word, but
digitization. I actually learned the word during Jason's podcast. Right, right.
Can we pick a better word, right?
Right. Industry 4.0.
There you go.
Right.
It's easier to say. But I missed the presentation, but someone from Tesla was there, and they were saying how they were trying to eliminate heat treatment, you know, in the manufacture of electric cars. And part of that is by going to all aluminum and using high pressure die casting, etc. Right?
Aluminum requires heat treating.
Well, a lot of it does, but they're trying to eliminate that depending upon how you do it, right? I mean, in the aerospace industry, it requires quite a bit of heat treatment. Automotive, you can get away with less, but you still have the drivetrain, right? You still have motors driving wheels, you still have steering systems, you still have brake systems, et cetera, et cetera. So as I started looking at it, and you actually have gearboxes. So there's a big discussion right now. You know, Tesla uses a very simplified gear transfer mechanism, and they may even, I haven't studied it in depth, but they're using the whole power curve of the motor to change the speed as opposed to using any type of gearbox. Some manufacturers right now are coming out with 2-speed gearboxes, and they're not necessarily putting 2 motors on the rear for each wheel or 4 motors for all-wheel drive. They're doing it more conventionally as far as transferring the power. So if you start doing that, you're going to go back to more some of the conventional parts that are needed within a car. So I see that changing tremendously as more manufacturers are coming out with electric vehicles. So I think it's still an unknown how much it's going to affect heat treatment. It's certainly going to change it, but is it going to reduce it? I'm not sold on that.
And I just, you know, because I know that you also have some experience in carburizing, but you know, all the gears, all the pinions, you know, all the guys that do that are very scared about losing all the business. And I just keep asking this question, right. You know, with the smaller gearboxes and you know, different motors on each wheel, nitriding and FNC. Well, nitriding, you know, makes a little more sense. Also, brakes are not gonna go away, right? You still need to brake. But I asked the question, and to this point, you know, I've been getting a lot of answer. But what do you think is going to happen with all that existing equipment that is out there with all those massive pit furnaces, those massive pushers, right? Are they going to be scrapped? You know, companies are going to say, "Hey, I got the machine already. Should I just I'm not talking about those big companies, right? I got the machine already. Yeah. Should I just trash it, scrap it, or should I just invest on doing an upgrade and run the process in house?" or,
It's,
you know?
I mean, a lot of that's changing, Carlos. I mean, one of the things that electric vehicles are going to allow people to do is engineers are recreating the definition of an automobile. Okay. You know, in the past, you had engineers at the different automakers. They always did it. They kind of never reinvented the wheel. They just kind of improved the wheel.
Right.
So if they were using carburizing, they would continue to use carburizing.
Right.
You know, it was hard to get them to go from carburizing to, let's say, nitride. Okay. If they're going to reinvent a car and how it works, then you can talk to the engineer and say, maybe you ought to consider nitriding instead of carburizing. So you will see major changes in the way parts are, you know, manufactured because of the changes in the engineering. So, and that's going, and that's been happening anyway. I think I go back to the mid 90s, Ford Motor Company was using pusher furnaces for gears, right? And they were telling us at the time that they had like 5% scrap rate. And, you know, in these big pusher furnaces, and they were trying to save money and trying to figure out how to not over design the gear. And then they had the challenges of having more gears, better fuel efficiency. They had to make the transmissions lighter. And in the end, they went to low pressure carburizing. I never would have thought that the automotive would have gone as big to low pressure carburizing with gas quench as they did. So they made, you know, conscientious changes because the industry was demanding.
And I had the conversation with when they saying which process is better. I think they're all processes, and all of them are gonna follow in their niche regarding the demand that they have, you know, economies of scale. So I know that there's a place in the, and there will be always a place in the industry for LPC. I know there will always be a place for gas carburizing. I know that salt is going to be there as well. Nitriding, FNC, normalizing. We will always have a need, no matter if it's in the auto industry, to make steel harder or to have more wear resistance, or you name it, right? But a lot of things are changing because the auto business is such a big consumer of heat treating nowadays, right? I found amazing that you shared with us that Tesla is looking for ways to eliminate heat treating, which I actually find it shocking. But but on the other side, I can tell you that also I know that there's a lot of requests for e-drive or for Ford or GM, you name it, right? So we should wait. Let's have a podcast in the next in 5 years, and I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's changing a lot. It is.
It is changing a lot, but you as a heat treater now, right now with the uncertainty of how the markets are going to behave with all the semiconductor shortage. Right, companies not wanting to invest big amount of dollars on machinery. What do you think commercial heat treaters, how do they should play, offense or defense? Right? Should they be buying furnaces, like you say, to be ready when customers are ready to pull the trigger, or should they keep a lot of cash in the bank just to try to pass the year, because there's a lot of uncertainty of how the market is going to behave. I read an article like I don't know if yesterday, 2 days ago, that Ford was going to start to sell trucks without some semiconductors. I don't know if those were for the stereo or something, just to keep releasing the cars. So what's going on, Mark?
There's a lot you put in there. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, semiconductors, what you're saying there is we started using them in everything, right? So, and your instrument cluster, everywhere else, everything started going digital, and there aren't enough chips. So they're going back to some of the analogs,
right?
So they can build trucks, they're not there to sell.
You can have a new vintage car now. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh,
exactly. We go back to the old analog.
Right. Classic.
People can't tell them how fast you're going by looking at the analog, right? So I think some of that's going to happen. You're going to see a lot of changes, but I don't think you should run your commercial heat treat or your heat treat shop. I mean, you have to live in today, right? If you're afraid of tomorrow, you should understand the trends, and you had asked these questions before, do you see any growth in the market? I mean, quite frankly, I don't think we see a lot of new commercial heat treaters opening up, right? Because it takes experience.
Great statement. Great statement there. Great statement.
It takes experienced people, and a lot of these people were owners forever. We're seeing consolidation. We're seeing acquisitions in the business, but we're not seeing greenfield sites open up. We're seeing people expand their facilities, but running a commercial heat treat shop, as you say, you've got to keep your customers happy. And commercial heat treating is very demanding. People want their parts turned around in 7 to 10 days. They want it perfect, they want to save money. It's a lot of work. All right. So, to have an organization that can do that is difficult. That's why bringing heat treatment in-house is also challenging. You need a furnace company or a partner that can actually help you set up your heat treatment if you've never done heat treating. There's a lot of good reasons to bring heat treatment in-house. The biggest thing I usually hear from customers when I was selling equipment is quality and control of the inventory process. Because if you now have inventory out on the roads, okay, and in other plants, it's going to add days to your inventory, and automotive runs in just in time. You're going to have a lot more material running around. So that's the biggest reason people bring heat treating in-house. It's not to save money, because it's expensive. You have to hire all the people. A lot of times the captive heat treater pays better than what maybe an outsource shop like yours or ours might pay. So they're not necessarily saving money. They're just getting control of the process that they believe is important.
Right. And what's first, the chicken or the egg? Because to run heat treat, you have to have a very experienced metallurgist, right? A very experienced quality guy that knows heat treat, right? Because it's a core process, right? And I'm seeing this right now. A lot of plants are saying, should I bring all of my production from China in and start my own heat treat, which is going to be a huge pain in the butt, right? Or should I just outsource it, right? But there's always the challenge when they're bringing stuff from abroad that they want to pay. I'm pretty sure you have talked about those target ridiculous prices always, right? So
I just went through one, yes.
So okay, let's talk to sales, Mark, right? And another advice: how do you deal with those big companies that they just say, "Hey, this is my target price," and they need the process, they need to outsource that, but the buyer cannot just get the idea that you're doing this on a state-of-the-art company. You got a team, brand new equipment, and they just brought it from China on a very moms and pop shop. How do you deal with those purchasers or those?
Well,
what's your approach?
Target price is a dream, right? I have a
right.
So you can ignore that. Typically, I mean, it's nice, but you know as well as I do, we have a business to run. We can't do stuff for free. We're going to give the best quality we can and the best turnaround. We have, it's inflationary right now. Ammonia prices are going up. Electricity is going up around the world. Natural gas is going up. Right now, I think people need to have a reliable partner that can actually produce the parts. Pricing should be secondary, always to quality and responsiveness. So if we take care of you as Nitrex Heat Treating Services, you really shouldn't be wanting to add your own heat treatment if we're doing the job for you. Now, there may be other reasons unrelated to whether we're doing a good job or not. Hopefully we're doing a good job for you to bring your heat treatment in-house. But our goal as a heat treater, and your goal as a commercial heat treater for your business, is to keep your customers happy, right? And keeping them happy, pricing is only a small part of it, right?
Thank you so much, Mark. Mark, it's been a ride talking to you about heat treating, especially Nitriding and FNC. I believe we cover a bunch of topics, way more interesting than the questions that we had on the script. Did we miss something, or would you like to add something to our Nitriding FNC conversation that you would like to share with the audience? About processing industry, where it's going. Do you think we missed something, or is there something you would like to add?
Yeah, we started talking a little bit about the Industry 4.0, the computerization, the digital world that we're living in. You know, heat treatment has always been considered that black art, right? Where people are shoveling parts, you know, with a shovel and shoving it into a furnace, and you've got flames coming out and all that. It's becoming much more precise, right? So, you know, there's software that helps you run the business. There's software that helps you understand your cost. You've got everything going into your machine, so you know what your expenses are, and you can quickly respond to that guy that says, I need 10 cents a pound cheaper. Okay. And if you understand your costs of the business, you know, you're going to be successful, and you're going to be able to give the best service possible.
Thank you so much, Mark. Mark, again, hope to see you soon in one of the Heat Treat shows. You know, let me know. Just to close the show, you know, you've been in this business for a lot of time. You have been on the equipment sides, trying to sell equipment to the big players. Now you're representing a company that sells commercial heat treat, so you know the different sides of the spectrum right now. But and you've been very successful, and you're a very passionate heat treat guy. I can tell that, you know. But also we're in an industry that is losing a lot of talent, and I don't think we're replacing that talent as it's leaving, right? What would you share, or how would you encourage the new generation of heat treaters, of engineers, material science guys? And they say, you know, should I get are thinking about applying or accepting a job on the heat treat area, on a heat treat shop? What and how do you think as an industry we have to embrace that? Because that's a reality. The people with experience are leaving, and I don't think we're replacing that as fast as they're doing. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yes, it's been time for us, you know. I always say, some of us who've been in the business a long time, we have absolute job security because people aren't coming into the business. What I tell the younger people is that you will never be born in our business, because you're always learning. Metallurgy is very complicated. It's challenging. There's good business opportunity for you. There's good earnings opportunity for you if you come into this business. Yes, it's not as glamorous as running a TikTok business, right? But as far as I'm concerned, you know, it's an honest business. You're going to be involved in a lot of interesting things. You get automotive parts. You get parts from all kinds of industry, you know, whether it's diesel engines or you know, your tractor, etc. Everything you touch out is heat treated. So come into our industry. We'll train you. I love mentoring people and training people. That's my goal, I think, for the rest of my time in the business, is to try to bring people up and to love the industry as much as I do. You know, I know that you came from the industry also through your father being in the industry. Mine was in the industry, and it's a special industry, but those of you that come into it, you find it very gratifying. So we welcome you.
Thank you so much, Mark. You know, I do agree that we need mentors. You know, people that are willing to share their experiences. I take, that's my takeaway from this conversation. We need to be, well, I'm not a mentor yet, but you know, guys, like with your experience, I mean, you should be mentoring people and encouraging the younger guys, you know, to get passionate about this industry, to disrupt this industry. So, Mark, thank you so much. It's been a ride to you, getting all this added value and great conversation about heat treating. Hopefully, we meet soon in person. So, would like to remind the audience that we're uploading heat treat podcast powered by industry like Mark Hemsath, Vice President of Sales of Americas on Nitrix Heat Treating Services. Thank you so much, Mark. We're on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, right? Have a great week, and talk to you on the next session.